You're listening to Popstar Conversations, taking you inside with your favorite musical artists.
This week, Chuck and I are sitting here with the legendary Carlos Santana. Carlos, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Carlos, is this album, Guitar Heaven, is it inspired by Rolling Stone's Special Edition, the greatest guitar songs of all times?
You could say that. I think that's the idea that sprouted from Clive Davis's imagination to collaborate the best songs that Rolling Stone and Rolling Stone's perception with one of the best guitar players in the top whatever it was. So it was an invitation to, for me, you know, I can say it's like an invitation to illumination, because you have to be illuminated to get past the fear and have the courage to do something like this. And most people say, I ain't touching those songs. You know what I mean?
Is that because those songs, they're like the Mona Lisa of rock music?
Because they are a Mona Lisa collection. But at the same time, if you look at it from the right aerial view, it's not NASCAR, it's not competition, it's not comparing, it's complementing. All of these songs, as I said before, they're ladies. And I trust that I can take them out on a date and they will want to go out with me again. It's a matter of trusting. The whole album, if you have to think of one essence, what is the essence of trust? Trust that we'll be able to do something completely new, totally familiar. Trust that you'll be able to take this songs into a place where hopefully my brother Jeff and Eric and Jimmy will say, damn, you know, it's like us and my brothers from AC/DC. It's really about honoring the songs. It's not the opposite.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Is it true that you weren't really that keen on the idea at first?
Yeah, well, like any human being, I was concerned with the challenge of it. But then I realized Black Magic Woman is from Peter Green. Oiko by Tito Puente. Gypsy Queen, Gabor Sabo. She's Not There, The Zombies. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. You know, so I've been doing this thing evil ways, Willie Bobo. So what's the problem? Except that this time I'm like a laser beam. We're concentrated mainly on guitar. This is why I came up with the idea of calling it Guitar Heaven, because this is a guitar album. I like to do another one in the future, more Wes Montgomery or Grant Green or Manitas de Plata, John Lee Hooker. You know, although we did have one kind of like John Lee Hooker, which is Lagrange from CC Top. It's nice to be transparent enough to go into the essence of the song and take it somewhere else.
Well, you've definitely had an enormous amount of collaborations over the years, and quite successful ones to say the least. Is Guitar Heaven, is that a continuation of Supernatural 4?
Yeah, I started with Michael Bloomfield and Jerry Garcia and Tito Puente. I don't know, I'm in this planet to coexist with people. I'm not into this planet to just say, look what I can do, and only I have this bubble that isolates me from anybody else. I don't, to tell you the truth, I really don't listen to critics of fear. There's critics of love and there's critics of fear. I would say to all of them, here's my guitar. If you can do it better, do it. Otherwise, shut the hell up.
So what was the process of you choosing these 13 songs?
Well, thank you for asking that. Clive Davis selected 7 and I selected 7. I selected the songs that for me resonate more from the point of like when I used to take LSD or acid or mescaline or peyote. Riders of the Storm is a very, very trippy song. Sunshine of Your Love, of course. A Whole Lot of Love, of course. Guitar Gently Weeps, of course. So I chose the songs that for me, even a blind man, or actually especially a blind man would see it, because all of the songs are very, very visual. I think that the ones that Clive selects, they're more songs that have to do with the aesthetics of radio, which I don't know much about, but I learned to trust him with it. Obviously, we've been doing this together since '68, him and I, and he is the architect of Supernatural. That was his idea, to collaborate with the greatest writers and singers and the new people who are in right now. And all I had to do was honor the menus. Menus were presented to me. No one tells me what to do or how to do it. They just like, here's a menu. What would you like to eat? And I says, I think I'm going to eat that one up,
The material that you're familiar with.
The stuff that I feel all the way into the center of my heart. Oh, this is the main key element of the essence for Guitar Heaven. It's trust.
And the material also goes into 3 different directions.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. The British invasion was funny because they were invading us with our own music, which is like Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Muddy Waters, and except for the Beatles, Well, actually, when they invaded us, they were still doing Chuck Berry and the Marvelettes, and then somehow once they saw Bob Dylan and they went from Sgt. Pepper's to, we used to call it teeny bopper music, which is kind of like the Boys and Sync or whatever it's called nowadays. Once they saw Bob Dylan, everything changed because the Beatles became like Michelle Mabel. That whole album, Rubber Soul, it sounded like they definitely were affected by Bob Dylan. But with all of that said, it's like when I heard Eric Clapton with Cream and Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, they took America's music from Willie Dixon,
and also Muddy Waters,
and Freddie King, Albert King, B.B. King, but they put their own British fire. Stevie Winwood, you can tell he listened to Ray Charles, Joe Cocker, of course, Ray Charles. And we all come from somebody. Obviously, they're listening to the right things, and then they're able to create their own identity, their own fingerprints. Elton John is different because he has his own thing, and that is remarkable that he's such a great writer and he can stick around for such a long time. I think it's about the songs with him.
Would you say that the British bands at that time had an influence on you and your musical style?
Yes. I grew up with the main root of my tree was Jimmy Reed, Lightning Hopkins, John Lee Hooker, and anything else was like almost like Frank Sinatra, which was like I didn't want to go there, even though I knew it was significant and important. But to me, the funky swamp music was John Lee Hooker, Lightning Hopkins, and Jimmy Reed. And then I realized that Jeff Beck were listening to Jimmy Reed, they were listening to John Lee Hooker, and so Peter Green, and I love that they inspire me. We inspire each other to go somewhere else with it. Jeff Beck is the first one to start integrating sitar with all over, under, sideways, down, and integrating a different form of. Because you can only play the blues scale so long, and then you want to play Ravi Shankar or Coltrane scales. Otherwise, you sound like a parakeet that only says "hello, hello." You can only say that so many times. Only Stevie Ray and B.B. King can say the same thing differently every time. You know what I'm saying? It's same scale, but every time you play it, it's differently.
Would you say that all of these guys, that they opened the door to another world?
Yes, they did. And I'm the first one to tell you, man. The Beatles, Cream, Jeff Beck, they found another way to create, I wouldn't call it new age, I would call it multidimensional music. They were listening. Same thing with the Doors. Everybody listened to Coltrane and Ravi Shankar. For me, it's easy because I'm watching all of them do their thing. Except that I took Olatunji and Tito Puente and Ray Barreto and Bolacete and Gabor Savo, and I started doing something because everybody was playing blues still. No matter what you break it down to, it's still the blues, only louder.
Definitely there was a lot of influence of the blues in rock and roll. Artists like Jimi Hendrix, they had to go to London to open so many doors.
No, exactly. So when we came in with Santana, we put congas and timbales and a whole other kind of thing in it, and we knew that it was making an impact on them because all of a sudden the Stones had timbales and congas. Sly Stone had timbales and congas. Miles Davis had timbales and congas. Jimi Hendrix, So we knew that they were listening because we combine more rhythms to make the woman more happier. All the blues and all that kind of stuff is mainly like a guy's music, including heavy metal. It's a guy music. The Doors was different because they use Backdoor Man. So the Doors attracted more women like the Rolling Stones because of Mick Jagger. But even they had to change their music away from the blues. So that blues is a male energy, even though is they're female melodies. We brought the male energy with the rhythms, so timbales and congas and the African. So this is why I say a female is the melody, rhythm is the male. And the women love the male. They love they started dancing differently. And for me, it's easy because all I had to do when I came in was basically think as a singer, like Marvin Gaye or Miles with the guitar. I already knew there's Peter Green. I already knew there's Michael Bloomfield. I don't know there's Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix and Jeff Beck. That's done. So find something that they're not doing, or that at least they don't know how to scramble the eggs that way. Because it's the same eggs. They're just being scrambled differently at this point.
Carlos, there's a new song on the record, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Why do you consider that the masterpiece of the record?
For me, it is because out of all the elements in Guitar Heaven, it's the Champs-Élysées in Paris, where all the streets connect. You got Yo-Yo Ma, who's Asian and plays cello in acoustic, and in a symphonic setting. You have India Array, you have the Beatles or George Harrison, and then you have Santana. And somehow it's one breath. I specifically asked Master Letic, we need to get Yo-Yo Ma and put an intro in there, like what Wes Montgomery did when he played the Beatles songs, like chamber music. Dun, 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 dun. Then you go Yesterday. Dun, dun, dun. So they have a little interlude in front of the song, like chamber music. That's where I got the idea from Wes Montgomery. If you listen to Wes Montgomery, 5 or 6 songs interpreting the Beatles songs, it's very elegant.
Did you have to get approval from Olivia, George Harrison's widow?
No, we sent it to Olivia after we did it, and she responded really, really quick. She says, Carlos, as soon as I heard the song, I cried and jump with joy at the same time. And I want you to know that George Harrison really admired, and he was really encouraged. And then she said, how could he not? Because you have a passion for compassion, and you utilize music to help people. So we do this so we can do that. Because when I grew up in San Francisco, it was Mother Teresa, Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Martin Luther King, the Black Panthers, all of that. And then there was like Tito Puente, B.B. King, Miles Davis, the Grateful Dead, Jimmy, so I just went like this. We do this. George Harrison was doing the same thing. Stevie Wonder, Prince, they do the same thing. We do the same thing. We utilize music to help people get money. If you graduate from high school and you don't have money to go to college, here's some money for you, man. It feels really good. You can't take it with you. You can only have how many houses you need, how many cars, or it's like invest in schools, invest in education, so that it will be less violence. When you give up people's sense of self-worth, if you look at the Beatles, imagine All You Need Is Love, and then the songs that George Harrison wrote, they're not cute and candy. Those are seriously forever songs. They're forever young, like Bob Dylan, and eternally relevant. So they're hymns, you know what I mean? And that's what I notice from music, that all music that I listen to, Bridge Over Troubled Water, which is something that I would like to do in the future, there's songs that transcend generations. And the Beatles definitely found many songs to do that.
So would you say that the metal songs from the 80s that are on this record would have a different temperament?
Yes, because some ladies, they lend themselves to walking like a Puerto Rican black sister. For example, like Can't You Hear Me Knocking is a whole lot of love. You can put the hip hop in there. The Eddie Van Halen song and the Photograph song, they're a little bit more challenging in the sense that I have to be more present to bring something different so I don't sound like Van Nuys. I have to sound like the other side of town. You can't just put congas. It's like putting stick-ons on it in a refrigerator. No. You have to know how to work from the bottom up. The bass and the drum, something different. Because we want to be able to play the songs in Puerto Rico and in Africa, and people not go. In all reality, we offer our deepest gratitude to U2 and Bono, for what they do with Africa and for Africa. Yet if they play this music in Africa, people are not going to move. They're not. And so you have to know how to work with rhythms that makes African Americans or Africans, American Indians, Japanese, Irish, Scottish move, make the woman move. So this was a little more challenging going in there and creating a different mood.
Carlos, on another note, when you proposed to Cindy on stage, was that planned?
Spontaneous. I saw her play, and There is something about her spirit that it excites me to believe that I could wake up with her every morning. We can talk for hours about Miles Davis and Tony Williams and Wayne Shorter, and then we can talk about children, and we can talk about flowers, or we can not talk at all and just drink from each other's eyes. I know that in the future we will write an album together because we're that kind of artists and musicians. But for right now, I honor. The best way to describe Cindy is she's an angel sent from heaven to me to learn about cleaning my inner act. My outer act is put it together, but cleaning my inner act is something that I need, and I'll see what she needs, but I know that we both need something, and this is why people come together to everything, yourself with your own, and everybody's a teacher and a student to one another.
That's a beautiful perspective. Carlos, what's the process of recording new material and writing, and do you decide what to put out?
No. I know when to defer. I leave things in the hands of my brother Clive Davis. I know when to come into the studio and just give it all my light and my love, and I know when to back off and say, I don't know about this, or why even trip on it, I said to one person, I won't say his name, but I said, well, let me get this straight. You write all the songs, you play all the instruments, you produce all the songs. Are you going to buy the records too? So you have to know when to defer, because this is the way the world is. You have something that only you can do that I cannot do, and I give you my deepest respect and appreciation and admiration. And it's important to validate other people instead of just being. This is the funny part. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. It's not me, 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 me. Dig? That's what we love Coltrane, because, and Bob Marley, and One Love, Love Supreme, because they hit all the scales.
And you've done your part quite well. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for listening to Popstar Conversations. Be sure to click the subscribe button below and hit the red bell so that you'll be notified of our next exclusive interview.
Thank you for listening to Popstar Conversations. Please join us again for another conversation with your favorite musical artist.